The living God always works with tests. In the Garden of Eden, he put man, Adam and Eve, and he gave them a test. 2 trees he placed in the garden, and they had to choose whether they would serve themselves or whether they would serve him. 2 trees, 2 types of fruit. Does it really matter which fruit they ate? It's a test that God put there. And for the thinking of the human, would God punish man with death because he ate a piece of fruit? Does it really matter if you eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Does it really matter? You look around the world, is there hunger? How much pain is there? Our world testifies that it does matter. It does matter what fruit you eat. There were 2 brothers, and they were required to bring an offering. One brought a lamb, the other one brought fruit, vegetables. Does it really matter what you bring to God for an offering? Shouldn't he be thankful anyway that you brought vegetables? Do we have to be so particular with what God says? When we look at the story, it does matter. It matters greatly. Abraham had to make a choice between his wife and a concubine. Did it really matter? If his wife gave him the permission to have his concubine, does it really matter? We can see in the Middle East, it does matter. These little things, it does matter. And today God has a test, and this test is a day. There is the Sabbath, and there is Sunday. But does it really matter about a day? Shouldn't God be happy if we worship him on any day? In fact, shouldn't we worship him every day? So what does a day really mean? Does it really matter? Well, according to history, it actually does matter. There are 2 days, and these 2 days stand before us to make a choice. There is Sunday, which is a day of pleasure. And there is the Sabbath, which is a day of worship. In the book of Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, knowing this, that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. It continues in verse 4, it says that these people will be lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. They'll have a form of godliness, but they'll deny the power thereof. These 2 days stand, one as a day of pleasure for the flesh, the other stands as a day of pleasure in the Lord. And there are many people who even observe the Saturday Sabbath as a day of worship, but yet find more pleasure in Sunday because it is a day in which you can relax, you can do your own thing. It also says in Isaiah chapter 58 and verse 13, if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord honourable, and shalt honour him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasures, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord. And I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. Here God is saying, I don't want you to do your own pleasure. But at the same time, I want you to delight in my holy day. How does that match to the human brain? That there is a day that I'm not allowed to do my own pleasure and yet still be happy. Because in these perilous times, men are lovers more of their own pleasure than of God. And God has a test for us today, and that is this Sabbath Sunday question. And does it really matter what day it is? It actually does matter, because God had said, and what God says goes. But we rationalize and think, this is not required. This is a Jewish thing. In fact, it's not a Jewish thing. It was given to Adam at the creation of the world. And so we have Sabbath and Sunday, and this is how it works generally. We have Sunday as a day which is given to family time. That many people don't work on Sundays. It's a day of recreation. It's a day of pleasure. And the Sabbath is a religious day for those that keep the Sabbath, or at least use it as the day of religion. And many people, even who keep the Sabbath or profess to keep the Sabbath, find that Sunday is still a more pleasurable day than the Sabbath. Many youth I know hang out for the closing of the sun for those that keep the Sabbath, because Sunday is a day where you can do whatever you want. You can go and have a barbecue, you can get the cricket bat out, you can kick the footy around, but the Sabbath, you need to be in church. You need to be worshipping God. And to many, that is more burdensome than having a day where you can sleep in. You don't have to drag yourself up in the morning to go and take the Sabbath school lesson or preach a sermon. It's far less stressful. And all this shows that we are lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Sure, we might love God, but secretly deep down, we love pleasure more than God. And so God has this test, this Sabbath test, because if we will not do our pleasure, then it says, then you will delight yourself in the Lord. The Sabbath, in order to keep the Sabbath properly, requires to be born again, to have your pleasures in the flesh change so that your new pleasures are with the Lord, where with the Lord are pleasures forevermore, as it says in Psalms. And many people do not find this pleasure in the Lord. And today there are these 2 days where we have to choose, not just on what day you're going to use it as your religious exercise, but which day do you love more? Which day is more of a delight to you? Is it Sabbath or Sunday? Is it God's day or is it man's day? If you don't believe in the Sabbath, it does matter. What God has said does matter. It has mattered in the past and it matters today. If you keep the Sabbath but you find no delight, you need the grace of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ himself said in Psalms chapter 40 and verse 8, I delight to do thy will, O my God. Yea, thy law is within my heart. This Sabbath day is not to be written on the stone, but in the fleshly tables of the heart. And then only will it become your delight. It will become the fulfillment of your own pleasure in the spirit, not in the flesh. This is the test. Remember to keep the Sabbath holy.